Hello and welcome back to LPRs Delivery. In an IKO exam, the examiner might ask you questions like these. Tell me your working routine. How often do you work at provincial airports? Tell me about VIP flights. Or do you always use correct phraseology? In these questions, we see words like routine, often, and always. To answer these questions properly, you need to be able to describe frequency in English. So this lesson is about expressions for frequency. Most frequency expressions are adverbs. So if you haven't seen the last lesson about adjectives and adverbs, please review that first and then come to this lesson. To get started, we'll talk about adverbs of frequency like these. You've probably seen a chart like this before: never, hardly ever, sometimes, etc. So how do we use these adverbs? Well, where should we put them? For most verbs, we put the adverb of frequency before the verb. I usually speak English over the radio. So most action verbs and things like this go before the verb. However, we put these adverbs of frequency after the verb to be. Traffic is always heavy around 10 a.m. Always is the adverb of frequency behind verb to be. Also, we put these adverbs of frequency after auxiliary verbs. So for example, I have always lived in Chiang Mai. What's the verb? Well, actually we have two verbs. Have lived. That's our present perfect tense. So notice here that the adverb of frequency goes after the first auxiliary verb. Same here. We can sometimes take a nap during our break. What's the verb? Well, again, we have two verbs. Can, take. So here we have a modal verb, which is a type of auxiliary verb, before we have our present simple verb of take. Now let's look at some examples. Controllers should drink alcohol before a shift. How often is this true? It's never true. So where should we put never? Should never drink. Again, because should is a modal, so never should come directly after. We experience emergency situations. How often? We hardly ever experience. I travel abroad. I seldom travel abroad. So we see for these two, the main verb is experience and travel. And there's no other verb, so we put the adverb of frequency just before it. How about the next one? I have considered changing my career. Occasionally. I have occasionally considered changing my career. Again, have considered, so our adverb should go directly after the first auxiliary verb, have. Next, pilots can be quite demanding. How often? Well, sometimes. So pilots can sometimes be quite demanding. Again, can is our modal verb here, and it's the first one which comes before here, the verb to be. Thai pilots speak Thai over the radio. How often? Often, or frequently. So, Thai pilots often speak Thai. Right? Often speak. Next, I enjoy my job. How often? Well, normally. I normally enjoy my job. My coworkers are on time for their shift. Usually. How about here? Usually are or are usually? Should be are usually. Again, because here verb is verb to be, so usually would come after. And lastly, pilots need ATC clearance before they take off. How often? Well, always. So pilots always need ATC clearance. Now, these types of adverbs of frequency are what we call indefinite adverbs of frequency. So indefinite means that it does not define the exact frequency. So for example, sometimes doesn't tell us exactly how often. Now, in the exam, if the examiner asks you, how often do you work at provincial airports? And you say, sometimes. Is that true? Yes, it's true, but it's not a good answer, obviously. In order to get level 4 for interactions, your responses need to be immediate, appropriate, and informative, which means giving lots of information. This is not an informative response. This response would be much more informative. How often do you work at provincial airports? Well, it depends. I have to go to each airport once every 6 months to keep my license current for those aerodromes. But I sometimes go more frequently than that if there's a staff shortage. Here we see this phrase, once every 6 months. This is a definite frequency, and it's much more informative and it's much more appropriate for this situation. So now let's look at some definite frequency expressions. One way is saying things like this: once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, etc. A time period. So once a minute, once an hour, twice a day, or twice a week. One thing to notice is here that a or an means per. You can also say once per minute or twice per day, but it's much less common in English. Usually we will say a, not per. Let's look at an example. We call this blinking. So if you want to ask the question, how often do people blink? Google will tell us this. Most people blink about 15 times a minute. Now notice here, 15 times with a S, a minute, no S, so this is singular. Or every 4 seconds. So these two times, or these two frequencies better, 15 times a minute, and every 4 seconds, they're the same. And let's look at why. We can also say every minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, every year, every Saturday, every weekend, etc. We can use this with lots of different time periods. And it can mean pretty much the same. So every minute means once a minute. Every day, once a day. Now, it's not always exactly the same, but they're pretty much interchangeable. Now, another reason that this form is useful is because we can make this plural. So, every 15 minutes, every 4 hours. So one thing notice here that if we change the time period to something plural, we need to add the S also. Now, one more thing we can look at is this one. Every other minute, every other hour, every other day. What this means essentially is that this would be every day, but every other day would be skip a day. So every other day, every 2 days. Now let's put this all together and let's see some options that we can see for definite frequency. Let's look at the month of September in 2017. Playing golf. If I want to answer the question, how often do I play golf? What can we say? I play golf what? Well, we have a few options. I play golf once a week. So we see here, once a week. 1 week, 1 time. Or, I play golf every week. Same idea. Or even, I play golf every Saturday. Let's look at another example. Let's say I really like to golf. So here we have Saturday and Sunday. So what is some definite frequency we can say? I play golf, what? Things like these. I play golf twice a week. So here we see 1 week, 2 times, twice a week. Or I play golf twice every week. Similar idea. Or we can also just say, I play golf every week. That's still true because you're still playing golf every week, but just twice. That's one of the small differences about every. Next, I play golf every Saturday and Sunday. So this is even more precise, and it shows you the flexibility of using every. How about this one? I play golf. Yeah, so I play golf every 2 weeks. So here we see 2 weeks, 1 time. I play golf every 2 weeks. Also, we could say, I play golf once every 2 weeks. Same idea, but just more specific. Here, I play golf every other week. So here, skipping a week. Skip, skip. That's every other week. Same idea here. I play golf every other Saturday. Let's look at one more example about your working schedule or your working routine. Let's say that perhaps you work in position 1 from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, position 2 from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, etc. How could you describe this? We rotate positions every what? Would be every hour. We rotate positions every hour. Or here, I get a 1-hour break every 4 hours. So here, notice, if we look at it this way, 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. So in every 4 hours, you get one 1-hour break. And there are some other frequency expressions that you can use, but just learning these basic ones is more than enough to get you level 4, 5, or maybe even level 6 on the IKO exam. So please remember to do the quiz questions after this. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me anytime. And thanks for coming for LPR delivery, and see you next time. ขอบคุณครับ สวัสดีครับ